Y'all, Will brought this big mushroom that he picked off the side of the road this morning and tricked us into thinking that it had just popped up overnight here. Mushroom pranks. Guys, look. Pretty rose. Oh. So we had to get an air filter for our equipment so that we could level this out. So that's kind of the holdup on this. But I think today we're going to be focusing on prepping the ground here and starting to lay out these raised beds, beginning to fill them. I haven't been as excited for a garden space as I feel for this area in a good long while. I am so excited to have this beautiful potager. I'm really starting to think about the fall garden because, now don't get me wrong, we've harvested a lot of food out of our summer garden, largely because potatoes. We had a fantastic potato harvest, which if you're gonna have a lot of something, potatoes is a good thing to have a lot of. But definitely faced some failures. We've had a lot of summer squash, that's good. Not a whole lot of tomatoes, not a whole lot of green beans, but we've still got time. We're still doing some succession sowing and getting ready to replant a second wave of things. But I'm starting to look forward to the fall garden. I think I'm gonna plant some more sunflowers. I've definitely got time to have another wave of those. It's such a fast season with the summer garden. Guys, I just hope you're living your life with as much determination as this tromboncino squash is. Look at this. I got squash everywhere. Little morning garden snack. Don't mind if I do. These are Napa Chardonnay blush right there, so that's the color they're supposed to be. And the orange ones are the F1 Torringinas. Both of these are really good. The amazing thing about a garden, oh look. Y'all see that hummingbird? Oh, where'd it go? The hummingbird took off. Darn. Even though the silver slicer cucumbers are kind of starting to peter out a little bit, you can see how kind of crunchy they're getting. That's very normal with the heat. There's still quite a lot of cukes on them. I'll probably get another good batch of pickles out of these. I made a mistake. I had some really big tomatoes out here that were ripening, and they were kind of lower, and I left them even though they'd started to blush. And some critter came and just ate the bottoms off of all of them. So I might end up picking some more of my tomatoes when they start blushing. Just because though I like it when they're picked in the heat of the day and super full of flavor, I would prefer, you know, to pick them a little underripe and get to eat them than leave them and not get to eat them at all. Oh, the garden. So wooing. Hopefully it is not too windy for me to sit here and talk to you guys. The straps on this high tunnel start hitting the bars when the wind, oh, it's got an example there. If you hear that sound, that's what that is. And hopefully it's not constant. So I want to talk to you guys today, just like real talk, friend to friend. That's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to talk to you like I would talk to a friend that knows my heart. I want to be completely frank. I am struggling with the role of content creator that a lot of people listen to in this particular season. I am so thankful to get to make content, to teach people, to inspire people, to offer refuge where people can just turn on something that's not the news. I feel honored to get to do what I do. It is very, very precious to me. In 2020, when COVID started, I remember realizing kind of the weight of this role. Prior to that, it was like, okay, we're teaching people to grow food. I knew my own convictions. In 2014, Jeremiah and I found our first farm. It was a foreclosure. We were not homesteaders. We were not... we're far from it. I did not grow up in this lifestyle. We did this because we felt led to. And in 2014, we found our home. It was a foreclosure. It was like, wow, we're able to do this. And I remember feeling just a tremendous amount of weight in the importance to grow food. I mean, it was like this whole like spiritual thing. We felt the Lord talking to us about Joseph and Esther and like all these different things. Like it was a big deal. And we did this from being led. And we quickly learned that what we were being led to then in 2014 was not to be sustainable, but to learn how to be sustainable. That there was this like period of classroom. And the years have gone on, and obviously this thing has grown quite a lot, literally. And you guys have come along with us. When COVID started, it was a weighty thing. I'm like, wow, we have the honor and the privilege of walking with people through something truly unprecedented. And I remember going to the grocery stores in the very onset of COVID, and it was when the grocery stores were empty. And every time I talk about this, I'll have people come in and argue and be like, you're fear-mongering, that didn't really happen. You can argue with me all you want. I went to 4 different grocery stores when this started and took photos of all the empty shelves, and those grocery stores, every single one of the grocery stores in my area was over 70% gone. It was absolutely bewildering as a millennial born into 1980s America who had never seen anything like that before. And I remember taking photos because I was like, is this real? You know how when you're looking at something and you're like, this is so bizarre. But I will tell you, it kind of hit me different. I saw a lot of people in those stores, and I remember you could feel the fear in the grocery stores. I mean, just palpably. Because at that time, I mean, we just had no clue what was going on and what was going to happen. It was just really scary time. But I remember that I had a kind of insulation to that fear because I had food at my house. I had a high tunnel full of food. I had lots of seeds. It was March, it was onset of garden season. I had great soil. I was very confident in being able to grow food. Plus, we had meat in our freezers because we'd been raising meat. And I've cooked from scratch for 15 years. And so I always have a lot of staples. Flour, rice, beans, oil, all that stuff. Like at any given time over the last, several years, I could probably hole up with my family and not go anywhere for at least a few months and be fine, just off staples, especially during garden season. So I felt mostly okay. And at that time, what I felt was just a real urgency to start creating content daily to kind of walk people through that, bring a lot of peace, bring settling, and also options of something to do. And as many of you know, our platform and influence really exploded during that time. I think it doubled in like the first 2 months of COVID. Because people saw those empty store shelves too. What they did is they went and typed in YouTube how to grow food. There we were, like teaching people how to grow food. That's what we'd been doing for a couple years at that point. But it's different now. I'm going to tell you, I am feeling the weight a little bit differently now because some of the things that I took for granted aren't granted. Like this year, we got some contaminated soil. For those of you who haven't been following along, basically, I bought a bunch of soil from a source that should have been organic, and essentially, like many organic compost producers, this particular producer had gotten some contaminated elements that went into their compost. And what we assume it is, it's not showing up on testing, but what we assume is that it's Grazon, which a lot of other people, I know Charles Dowding dealt with this over in the UK. I know David the Good has dealt with this here. A lot of content creators have ended up with this contaminated soil and have been working on remediating it. I was very sobered by the fact that when I shared my issues and the fact that all of the plants I had started from seed, all the tomatoes that I put in my high tunnel, were stunted to the point of being fruitless and had to be torn out. And a lot of damage. It cost a lot. And I received just thousands and thousands of messages upon sharing this problem of people who experienced the same thing, particularly over the last couple years. It's been going on for about 10 years, but it seems to be mounting and an issue. And essentially, this herbicide, which is used in commercial food production to make hay crops, to feed commercial cattle specifically, it trickles down. And I've gone as far as to read like the labels of these particular herbicides, and essentially the production companies put the responsibility of the aftermath of that herbicide on the farmer that sprays it. And the farmer that sprays it is often just trying to do their job, and then they're selling their manure or they're selling the hay, and it ends up in the gardens of home gardeners like me, and it ruins our crops and ruins our ability to grow food at home. The company that makes the poison is putting the responsibility on the farmers. The farmers just trying to do their job, and basically it's just kind of like we're sitting here going, oh, my garden got completely killed, and there's nobody taking responsibility for that, and we don't even get the choice because we bought organic soil, and this just ended up in it because the nature of the poison is that it's persistent. The nature of the poison is that it kills plants like we grow in our garden. All of that to say, that shook me. It made me really mad. It made me really mad. I'm still mad. But I'm also kind of shook because I'm like, man, so much of my food security was in that ability to garden. And obviously, that ability can be hindered by an outside force outside of my control. At the end of last year, now we moved last year from Arkansas to South Carolina. Again, feeling led, did that thing. It was really hard. That last year was a very hard year. I will remember it as being one where we paid a really great price to do what we felt like we were supposed to do. And obviously reaping an amazing reward. I love it here. I've never felt more at home as I do in South Carolina. But it was a hard year. And in the midst of going through this really hard year and basically dealing with this forced rest period, I started feeling like I need to be prepared. I really need to not forget that original thing when we first started this in preparedness. And I started making content more about preparedness. I did a long video in the fall kind of talking about practical ways to be prepared. I'll put a link to that down below. I did a video a handful of months ago called The Urgency to Grow Food, kind of talking about that feeling of it being time to do something like that. So this has really been on my mind. While this has been on my mind about preparedness, I have been storing up dry goods. I have been preparing for the inevitability of the need for that. And I've been trying to figure out, how do I lead people well in a world where there are so many conflicting opinions, so many hot button issues, so many people that don't know how to disagree in a healthy way. And I'm like, what do I do? Now, more than anything, what I really want to do is I want to show you that peaceful life is possible. Even in the midst of conflict, even in the midst of hard things, even whenever you're following the lead that you feel, and it requires sacrifice, and when it's difficult, peace is possible. And I really want to model that well. But right now, I also really want to be able to say hard and sobering things. It is really, really important right now to grow food. It really, really is. But it is also really important to have food that you don't have to grow. It is really important right now to know how to cook rice and beans. It is really important right now to know how to get by on little. We've never lived through what we're living through. My generation has never faced what we're facing, but we are able and we are capable and we're not alone. And I am having a hard time in figuring out how to talk to you, how to be honest with you, because the truth of the matter is, I'm having moments that I'm having to go back and say, you know what, I'm going to get back to what I know is true. I'm going to get back to surrender. And I'm feeling the weight of this moment that we're living in. And what I want to share more than anything is, yes, get some food in your house. I've been showing you canning. I've been talking to you about buying dry goods. Go to a bulk food store. Go to a restaurant supply store. Have flour. Learn to make sourdough. Learn to cook from scratch. Basic staples. You do not have to spend thousands of dollars on freeze-dried, ready-made meals in order to have food storage. Rice and beans are cheap, and putting some of those up, and you don't have to put up a ton at once, just buying a little bit at a time, buying as much as you can, I think is wise at this point. I am listening to all the different sources. I am listening to people talking about prepping, but I'm also trying to temper that with really listening to what I feel like the Lord is saying to me. And I really do feel like having food storage is good. And all of that to say, right now is the time to be thinking about the fall garden. And every year I pop in, about right now, about mid-July, whenever the summer garden, I know, is kicking your tail because the bugs are mounting and the weeds are mounting and it is so hot. And this is the point where a lot of people are giving up. Their garden, the weeds are up to their knees, their cucumbers have gotten crunchy, they've got bugs like crazy, they've lost a lot of their harvest because of issues, and this is the point where they're giving up. Ironically, this is also the point to plan the fall garden, and a lot of people are so dejected by their failures that they're like, I can't even look at this, I'm done for the year. And I really want to encourage you to not be done for the year. If you have to let some things go, I'm about to tear a lot of this stuff out because it's getting diseased, and I want the space to go ahead and sow something to have harvest in a couple of months. But it's not too late in a lot of places to go ahead and sow more summer stuff. And it's definitely just the right time in a lot of places to start thinking about that fall garden. Get your seeds for your root vegetables, for your brassicas, for English peas. All of these things you'll be able to sow over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks, depending on where you are. Some of you need to sow them now. You can put that stuff in and be harvesting food into October and November and even December in a lot of places. That's a definitely good thing to do. I do believe in the garden. I really do believe in the garden. And when I see so much talk about inevitable food shortage, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that. I've been told that those words are getting flagged and a lot of videos are getting demonetized and taken down. I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I'm seeing all this stuff about food shortage, and it's looking pretty promised at this point. It is looking, when I am looking at the grand scheme of things that are happening around the earth, or specifically in our country, I'm thinking, yep, they're pretty much promising that there's going to be a food shortage, and I'm watching farmers have to take their cattle to the sale barns because it's not rained in Texas to speak of in months, and there are so many things that are happening right now. And I want to encourage you, when you start seeing talk like that, okay, do not put your head in the sand. You are able, you are capable, you are smart, you are hearing these things right now, and I cannot say whether there will be food shortages or not, but I can tell you there will be no shortage of food where I am, because as of right now, I am capable, I am able, I am smart, and I'm going to do something about it as far as my home is concerned and as far as my immediate place of influence is concerned. I have been putting stuff by to the point of maybe even excess, maybe even to the point that I'm like, okay, my family's cared for, but I'm going to still keep putting stuff by because I don't ever think that my responsibility is just my kids, my husband. I want to, in my life, be able to help as many people as possible. And I have said before that, like, I don't get a $10 vote because of this unusual platform that I have. If I buy one thing and 100 people see it and they buy it, then I've just created 100 sales for a thing. But if I can plant one seed and it can lead to 10,000 seeds being planted, and I can jar one jar of food and it can lead to 10,000 jars of food being put up, and if I can make one video that makes people go out and buy a few 50-pound bags of rice and beans, so that they have that security in their house, that's a little less shortage that is going to be experienced. And so I want to do that. I am concerned about food right now. That's true. I am concerned about food. Grow a garden. Absolutely. Don't give up on the garden, even if it's true that it can get poisoned by our corrupt system. I'm not going to quit. My garden got poisoned. My plants got killed. My harvest got impacted. I have harvested 8 edible tomatoes this year. I mean, I've, in the past, at this point, I'm overrun with tomatoes. Every surface of my house is covered in tomatoes. This year, I got 8 so far. It's been the worst tomato year since I started gardening. Since I grew more tomatoes when I had no idea how to grow them than I have this year. But I'm not going to give up because I believe in the garden. And to me, shortage or not, catastrophe or not, whatever the motive is, the garden is, to me, what we were created for. And therefore, it must make it through whatever damage might affect it, it'll make it through. It's the design of what we were made for. And I so believe that I'm not going to let the garden go. I'll carry it through hell with me if that's what it takes, but I'll know that it will come out how it's supposed to be on the other side. And so I'm going to continue growing a garden. I do have a backup plan. And so I'm saying that to you now because I think that we have to talk about these things. I think that I will continue to turn the video on and have a laid back, peaceful video. Much of the time I will continue to share my refuge in you, because I'll tell you, as aware as I am about the circumstances in the earth right now, I am still experiencing this life with a lot of peace. I am still experiencing my concerns with a lot of peace. And so that's why I turn the camera on and let you experience kind of a peaceful refuge, because that's just really how I'm experiencing life. But I can't fully ignore the concerns. I can't not talk about those things, because you're thinking about them. I see you talking about them. I see you asking about them. And I want you to feel hope, that you are not helpless, and that all of this is not happening to you. Yes, it's happening, and a lot of it is happening outside of our control, but you have so much more control than you may realize. Even on a budget, even in an apartment, even with little space or little time or little money to work with, you are not at a place of being completely helpless. So, felt like a lot of rambling, but it felt really important to say, yes, if you are on the path of your food security and it's something you've been thinking about, I'm here to tell you I'm there too. I feel that too. Let that be a confirmation. If it's something that you've been toying with the idea of, stop toying. Yes, put some food up. Have some food security. Let the phrase come into your heart and you agree with this. There may be food shortages, but there will not be shortage in my home, because I hear it now, I feel it now, and I'm doing something about it now. Don't forsake the fall garden. I know the garden's been hard this year. I've never, in my whole time of this seat of being able to hear from so many gardeners, I've never heard of more people having issues with the garden than they are this year, and more people having issues with growing food. There's always the next season. Like, start planning for fall. If you feel defeated, just funnel that on into a fall garden. You're going to grow some great rutabagas. Maybe you can get another round of squash out in the fall. You won't have bugs quite as bad. Maybe you could throw some more potatoes in. You can do that as long as you got about 70 days left. You can grow some more potatoes. You can grow food. And you can also learn to put up the staples, the basics, learn to live off a little. You know, when facing serious inflation and the talk of depressions and the talk of all of these different things, I feel such a great confidence because I was just raised poor. Like, I mean, it's kind of a nice skill to learn how to not have anything and to learn how to get by on very little. I've eaten a lot of bowls of rice and beans before, to the point that I know how to like it. And you can too, and I'm gonna walk through it with you. I'm gonna show you, and I'm gonna share my very real and hopeful experience of that. But today I'm here to tell you, yeah, we need to be focused on making sure that there is no shortage of food in our own home, and we can do that, but it's time to take it really seriously. I really do feel like that, and I'm saying that because I care about you, because I feel pretty confident in my ability to keep shortage out of my home, but I want to walk with you to keep it out of your home also. Bear with me, guys. I want to navigate this well. So next on the list for me, fall garden, getting it planned, getting succession sown done, continuing to can, and I will be showing you guys as we go. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I bless you. Until next time.